What if the key to understanding Matthew 25 lies in the balance of our faith, preparedness, and stewardship? Let's dive in. The parable of the 10 virgins, right at the beginning of this chapter, presents an intriguing perspective on preparedness. The wise virgins, with their lamps filled with oil, were ready for the bridegroom, illustrating the importance of vigilance in our faith journey. This is a call to always be prepared, to keep our spiritual lamps burning with the oil of faith. Next, we navigate to the parable of the talents. Here, stewardship takes center stage. The servants are entrusted with their master's wealth and are expected to manage it wisely. This parable isn't just about financial wisdom. It's a broader message about the stewardship of all the gifts God has given us: our time, our abilities, our resources. Now imagine these elements: faith, preparedness, and stewardship as a balanced triad. Each component is interconnected, each one influencing and being influenced by the other two. It's a divine jigsaw puzzle, if you will, where every piece is crucial to the complete picture of our spiritual lives. In verse 23, the master commends his faithful servant. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Like that servant, we too are called to wisely use the gifts God has entrusted to us. But what if our obedience to divine commands leads to ethical living, and in turn secures divine approval? This question leads us into the second theological triad, a cyclic relationship where one virtue feeds into the next, creating a continuous loop that strengthens our spiritual journey. Let's look at the parable of the 10 virgins. Their obedience to the instruction of being ready is the first step. This obedience isn't just passive compliance, but active preparation for the arrival of the bridegroom. It's a demonstration of their faith and commitment. This obedience leads to ethical living, marked by preparedness and vigilance. The same pattern is seen in the parable of the talents. The servants who use their talents wisely, multiplying their master's wealth, are living ethically. They are being good stewards of what has been entrusted to them. Their ethical living, in turn, secures their master's approval, symbolizing divine approval. In both parables, the obedient and ethical are rewarded. The wise virgins are admitted to the wedding banquet, and the faithful servants receive their master's commendation and increased responsibility. This divine approval completes the cycle, reinforcing the importance of obedience and ethical living. This cyclic triad underlines the interconnected nature of our spiritual journey. One cannot exist without the other. Obedience feeds into ethical living. Ethical living secures divine approval, and divine approval encourages further obedience. As verse 10 warns us, readiness and obedience are essential to securing our place at the heavenly banquet. What if our acts of compassion lead to divine recognition, culminating in an eternal reward? This intriguing question is at the heart of the last parable in Matthew 25, the parable of the sheep and goats. This story embodies a powerful theological triad: compassion, divine recognition, and eternal reward. In this parable, Jesus describes the final judgment, where he separates people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. The sheep are those who have shown compassion, feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, welcoming strangers, clothing the naked, caring for the sick, and visiting those in prison. Their compassionate acts lead to divine recognition. Jesus says to them, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." The eternal reward. They inherit the kingdom prepared for them since the creation of the world. On the flip side, those who fail to show compassion, likened to goats, do not receive this eternal reward. This highlights a consequential causal link. Compassion or lack thereof directly impacts our eternal outcomes. This triad underscores the profound importance of compassion in our spiritual journey. It is not just about doing good for goodness' sake. It is about recognizing Christ in everyone we meet and serve. The beauty of this triad is its powerful simplicity. Verse 40 reminds us that our actions towards others are viewed as actions towards Christ himself, with eternal implications. So what does this all mean for us today? Matthew 25 calls us to maintain a balance of faith, preparedness, and stewardship, while honoring a cyclical relationship between obedience, ethical living, and divine approval. It underscores the cause and effect relationship between our compassion, divine recognition, and eternal outcomes. It's a call to action and vigilance in our spiritual journey. May we strive to live out the teachings of Matthew 25, ever mindful of the balance, cycle, and cause-effect relationships at play in our spiritual lives.